Good evening, one and all. Welcome to the Mental Health Webinar Series 2020 and 2021. Today our session is 506 and we are going to see the topic called Dealing with Abusive Relationship by the resource person Dr. Ragita Radhakrishnan. She is the head of the Department of Psychology, Dr. MGR Janaki College, Chennai, and she is also a visiting faculty at Dr. MGR Institute of Special Education and Research Center. She was an A student throughout her studies. Her doctoral research was based on developing resilience among students and hearing impairment. She was the gold medalist at university level and has won 2 best paper awards in international conferences. She was awarded as one of 50 outstanding faculty members in Arts and Science College in India in 2019 by ULEX. She is the recipient of Daniel Goleman Excellent Award in Psychology at 2021 by REPRC. She has published 14 articles in national and international journals and has edited a book called Transitions. She has been the keynote resource person for numerous conferences, seminars, workshops, and webinars. She is actively involved in counseling school children and college students. She also works extensively to cater mental health needs of students with physical disabilities. Her area of interest include Indian psychology, disability psychology, and positive psychology. I would like to invite today's resource person and all the participants on behalf of American College Madurai, MS Chellamuthi Institute Madurai, Madras School of Social Work Chennai, Red Pond Educational Psychological Research Center and Yellow Pond Counseling Center, and Tamil Nadu Career Counseling Association. Finally, Tamil Nadu Counselors and Psychotherapy Association. With this kind note, I would like to invite today's resource person, Dr. Ragita Radhakrishnan. Ma'am, over to you. You can take over, please.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much for the warm welcome, and I'm really thankful to American College and all the organizers for inviting me for this session. So I was able to log in from my laptop now, so can I share the content by myself? Would that be fine?
Voice വിൻഡോയിൽ കേൾക്കില്ലേ?
Hello. Am I
You can
audible?
go ahead, please.
Yes,
Ah,
yes.
right.
Yes, you are audible.
Right, sir. I'm having some issue with the WebEx on my laptop. So could you please present your side?
Okay, you can go ahead with your talk, ma'am, and I will try to share.
Okay, okay. Good evening, everybody. So today
You logged in 2 ways. Ma'am, you logged in 2 ways. I just noticed and I gave the co-host another device also. Now you can try.
no, sir, I'm not able to. There's some issue with WebEx on my laptop. I'm not able to, like, when I'm trying to share, it's just, it's just closing, the window's closing.
Okay, ma'am, you can go ahead. In the meantime, I will try. I will share.
Okay, okay. Thank you, sir. So today I would be talking about dealing with abusive relationships. So before we talk about dealing with it, first we need to know what we mean by abuse, or what is abuse in the real sense. So when we talk about abuse, the first thing which comes to our mind is bruised skin and marks on your face and stuff like that. But it's not always physical abuse. Abuse generally there are 5 types of abuse that can be there. We have physical abuse, which is the first thing which actually comes to our mind when we hear the word abuse. Then we have emotional abuse, which is also called psychological abuse or mental abuse. Then we have financial abuse, we have sexual abuse, we have spiritual abuse. These are the main categories of abuse that we can actually think of. So today I would be focusing more on psychological abuse or emotional abuse. So when we talk about psychological abuse, it's mostly the use of words or non-physical actions basically to manipulate another person, to hurt another person, to frighten them, or to, weaken them basically. They get weak emotionally, they get weak mentally, and it can even be to distort their thoughts and actions, or to bring in some change in their sense of self and to harm their well-being. So all these would come under the purview of what we call psychological abuse. So as I told you, it is used in similar words. I mean, similar terms. The words mental abuse, psychological abuse, and emotional abuse. So it's basically a way in which we try to manipulate another person or to scare them. So it can be in the terms, in the way of threatening them, or its statements, or regular behavior which actually tries to harm them in some way. So if you had noticed the title of my session, it was dealing with abusive relationships. So when do you call a relationship as an abusive one or a toxic one? It's any relationship. Like, we all need relationships, we all are social beings, we all need to be with people, we need a family, we need a friend circle, we need social support. But if any relationship that you are in is actually making you feel worse instead of making you feel better, then you can call that a toxic relationship. Because relationship generally, it the first thing which comes to your mind should be a marital relationship, but it's not only confined to a marital relationship. It can be in the friend circle, it can be the workplace. A toxic relationship can, it can be there in any place. So it's any relationship which basically makes you feel unsupported. It makes you feel misunderstood. It makes you feel attacked. Makes you feel worse, basically. Okay. So if you feel that there's something wrong, it's not actually as it's supposed to be, or at one point of time you feel good, at one point of time you feel like totally lost, you feel that I don't belong here, or it's totally messing up with my mental health, or it's just messing up with how I feel or how I think, then there is a high chance that as time goes by, this relationship may end up being.
Sorry to, ma'am.
Yes.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you.
Step.
Ma'am, sorry to interrupt you. Can you see these slides now?
Yes, sir.
Fine, ma'am. Then you give the instruction whenever slides complete, I will move on. You can go ahead, please.
Next slide, sir. I think it's the
So
fourth.
if a slideshow is put on, it will be better. So now, as of now, it is outside the slideshow. Yes, now it is.
Next slide, sir. Could you please change the slide, sir? Next slide. Yeah. So I was talking about toxic relationships. And next slide, sir. So we generally think that physical
This
abuse.
one, ma'am.
Yes, sir. We generally think that physical abuse is the worst thing that can happen, or that is really what is going to harm you in the long run. But if you see, like, this diagram is actually based on a study which was done in the United Kingdom, where there were a lot of therapists who dealt with, cases of domestic violence, and they found that out of the survivors who experienced non-physical abuse, 91% experience psychological abuse at some point of the time. Okay, so it's not something that's very rare, or which doesn't happen. Next slide, sir. So who are the people who actually get abused? Next slide, sir. So, what are the risk factors for abuse? So, there are certain identified risk factors. So, it can be a low socioeconomic status. It's not just a low socioeconomic status, it can also be the discrepancy which is there. One partner being a little better when in terms of the socioeconomic status, and the other person being not so good in terms of their social standing or in terms of their occupation or in terms of their education, some kind of a disability that they are facing, dependence, over dependence on one partner, low self-esteem, some kind of a personality disorder which is there on the part of either one of the partners, marital conflict, isolation, being alone or not having a proper social support, substance abuse uh, on any on any of the partners. And as I told you, there are many cases of abuse which come up now, which is not just between the partners. It can be the parents abusing the child, can be to the extended family, it can be among friends. So substance abuse is one of the major factors which lead to it. There can be cognitive decline on one in one partner, which can also lead to the other partner abusing them. And as I told you, there can be discrepancies between the two partners. And we may think that all the people who are being abused are those who are from a low social status, or those who are not working, or those who don't have a financial stability. But 29% of the perpetrators, they were actually people who were from a good background. They were not people who were from a low socioeconomic status, or they were in a good social, they were having a good social status, and they were the people who were actually abusing their partner. Next slide. So abuse, generally, it is around these two things called power and control. So there are many things which come as a result of that. There can be sexual abuse, there can be financial abuse, there can be emotional abuse. It can be because of immigration status. Next slide, sir. It can be because of the immigration status of the other person. It can be because of the heterosexism. It can lead to physical abuse. So there are a lot of things which are involved. So when we talk about this power and control, there are so many things which are actually intertwined in it. Next slide, sir. And mostly when we think about why people don't really come out of a relationship, it might be because they think about their children, or and sometimes it is the child who the abuser uses as a tool to make the other person stay in the relationship, especially in marital relationships. How can you leave? You're gonna, spoil the life of the child. Or, they threaten the person by keeping the child as a bait. So, most like 85% actually of the people, of the survivors, they said that the abuser or the perpetrator used the child or the children to actually threaten them or control them. So, who is an abuser? Can you please change the slide, sir? Salim, sir?
Some connectivity issue there.
Yes. Okay, sir. Meanwhile, I'll also try side by side to maybe try log into um, WebEx. I think I'm not able to connect with Salim sir. I mean, Salim sir is not able to hear me. I think there's some issue.
Ma'am, we can hear you very clearly, ma'am. Without slideshow also, you are clearly explaining. So you please go ahead, ma'am. Afterwards, you share the content in group, ma'am.
Sure,
Please,
sure,
ma'am.
I'll share it. Okay. So,
Yes,
who do
ma'am,
you
some
call?
network issues there. That's why I couldn't able to
Okay, sir.
hear.
Okay. So, who is an abuser? So, is it
Is the
Do we have a, yes, sir?
current slide, ma'am? This is the one, right slide?
No, sir. It like there are 2 or 3 slides which I already explained. Yes, characteristics of
Yeah. Please look into that.
yes, sir. The previous one.
Okay. No, it's okay, ma'am. You can, I got the internet connection back. You can go ahead.
Okay. So, who do you actually call an abuser, or is there any, specific characteristic that we have? Okay, this is the person who we can call an abuser. So, usually, an emotional abuser is a person who has a need to dominate. Many of them, they would have like abuse is actually, in most cases, a cycle. These people would have been abused as a child, and then they transfer it again to somebody else later on when they gain a position of control. So they have this need to dominate, and they feel they have this need that they want to be in charge, or they have to feel in charge of their victims. So they may use different methods. They may intimidate them, they may humiliate them, they may embarrass them in front of others, they may isolate them. They may say, okay, you can't go out without me, or I should know where you are, or how can you take the decision without me knowing, or assault them, or insult them, or make them feel as if they don't know anything, or tell them that we'll come to gaslighting later on in the presentation. So threatening them, or okay, or controlling them financially, not allowing them to actually take care of their own finances, restrict them from going out, or from working, or even just talking to their neighbors or talking to their family members, or not being aware of their needs. Not, it's not about being aware, not regarding that they have certain needs, that this victim has his or her own emotional needs, or financial needs, or anything. So they just do all this to have or exert that power and control over the victim. So why I said uh, he or her is because you can't always assume that it's always the male who is the abuses the female. It can happen the other way around also. So whoever it is, whoever the victim is, I'm not using a specific gender here. um, but mostly majority of the cases we generally see like in in practice we generally see the male abusing the female, but we can't generalize, of course. So all these things are what the abuser does to have that or exert that power and control over the victim. So what happens is, and most of the occasional abusive behavior, it does not actually, it's actually the previous slide, sir. It does not show that there is a, it's always about the frequency and duration. The slide before this, sir. So it's not always about how what kind of abuse happens. It's more about the frequency, about the duration, and actions that lead up to it, which helps us to understand whether it is actually an ongoing pattern of abuse. Is it just the starting, or in what stage it is? So whether it is really obvious or whether it is subtle. So whatever it is, eventually what happens is the victim feels powerless, the victim feels hurt, the victim feels worthless. I don't have an existence out of this relationship, or the victim feels scared even to talk about it or speak up against it. It basically makes the victim feel helpless. Next slide, sir. So there are certain people who we find that they are they are habitual abusers, and they have this capacity of choosing who they will abuse. They actually find out this person will actually be like fit into my definition of a victim, or this person will be submissive in this relationship. So they know who will actually fall prey into their whole abuse cycle. So they don't abuse everyone, they don't go around abusing all the people. Like if you see people who have a narcissistic personality, they will be the best people as far as other people are concerned. They're very helpful, they're very generous, they're very kind, but they will most probably have this victim next to them who they need for their narcissistic supply. So they abuse that one person or that small group of people so that they get their narcissistic supply. So they choose when to abuse. Mostly abuse is under, and like in most of the situations, abuse is planned. Like, this is what I'm going to do. It's nothing which happens just incidentally. So in public, mostly these people are good. Many people won't really realize unless the victim speaks out that this victim is actually being abused, or this abuser is actually capable of abusing somebody. So they conserve all their abusive behavior, all that they talk and everything, to all their private meetings, or inside the house or inside their room. So that is where mostly the abuse happens. And it's not a random loss of control. Like, mostly when we talk to victims, especially in a culture like ours, we, like, most of the victims, they think that it was just because he was busy, or he was too busy with work, or because of the work stress, or because of some other, yes, narcissistic behavior. So because of some other stress, that's why he just wanted to vent it out on somebody so that he can feel better. So it was just very it was not something that was intentional. Accidentally, it just happened like that. But it's okay for the abuser to be doing that. But it's not actually a loss of control. Most of the abusers know what they're doing, when they're doing it, why they're doing it, and they can stop it when they know that, okay, it's going out of control, or the victim may just slip out of their control. They know when to stop it. So that is generally how abuse happens. Next slide, sir. So what are the tactics which they use, or why do we have such a high incidence of abuse in our society? So there must be something that they use to keep these victims under their control. So they need that control over their victims. So what do? They actually isolate them. So gradually, you can see that this victim is, moving away from their family, from their friends. A person who was, very frequently going out with their friends, after they get into a relationship, gradually the frequency decreases. Like, once in a week they used to go out, now they don't go out as often, they don't make phone calls, they don't interact with others. It might be because the abuser is actually controlling them, telling them, no, you should not be talking to other people. When I am there, how can you, sorry, okay, when I am there, how can you go and talk to others? It's not fair on your part, or you should not be talking to them. It's, you're already in a relationship with me, so how dare you, talk to other people? That can be one tactic that they use. Or threats of personal harm. Next time you do this, that's it. So it might be that I'll hit you or physically harm you, or I'll harm your family members, I'll harm your parents, or I harm your friends, or your, or verbally abusing their loved ones, or they may even engage in self harm, because mostly the victim would be so emotionally attached to the abuser that any small self harm that the abuser engages in will, it will hurt the victim a lot. The victim will feel that, okay, if I do this, then he or she is gonna harm himself, like themselves. So I don't want that to happen. So I better not do this, or I better listen to what this person says. So that can be there, or they can intimidate them by, acts of aggression, destroying their property, or just, thrashing things around, or showing, facial, expressing facially that, or with facial expressions that this is what they want, or harming pets at their home. They're doing something which is actually distressing to the victim, or name calling. Next slide, sir. They can be name calling, or they can be displaying weapons that, make these people feel scared. Okay, maybe I am going to be harmed. Okay, that can be there. Or they can be, next slide, sir. They can be humiliation, or shaming them, or insulting them, basically making the victim lose their self-esteem. Okay, and make them feel powerless, and make them feel that I don't have a life out of this relationship. So they basically lose their sense of self. They lose that, that self identity that they had when they entered the relationship. They are just a shadow of their abuser. Without the abuser, they feel that they don't have an existence. Next slide, sir. So I was talking about the cycle of abuse. So there are different phases that we can actually, make out. So in this cycle of abuse, generally in any relationship, there is this tension building phase where the abuser actually increases the tension in the relationship. They don't talk much. They may stonewall, where, if the victim tries to say something, they just don't talk. They just, uh, stop communicating back, which makes the victim feel very, stressed, thinking that, okay, this is not what is, I'm not getting the, like, most of the times when we fight, we actually expect the other person to express his or her abuse. But here that doesn't happen. So, there is a lot of tension. There is that, a lack of communication, the victim feeling fearful, or they feel that they need to listen to what the abuser says. That is the first phase where the tension actually increases. That is the first level. And then you have the actual incident where there is verbal abuse, there is emotional abuse, there is physical abuse, there is blaming, there is threatening the victim, intimidating them. All these things happen next, where the actual abuse that we all know happens. So, most of the times, we're not aware of the tension building phase. So, we see only this incident. And mostly, it will be the victim alone who actually is aware of the incident. It may not be that other people might should know it. And then there is this reconciliation phase. This happens mostly under narcissistic abuse, where the abuser apologizes, tells that it was not, I didn't know that it would happen this way, or they may give excuses, or say that, you shouldn't be taking it seriously. This happens everywhere, or it was because of you actually. So, or or deny. How can you say that I did all this to you? I never did this, or I didn't mean to do this. Do you have any proof for this? Or or you're saying that this is, it happened in such a big way, but it's not that bad. How can you say all this? Do you really think that I'm a person who would do that? So all these questions come in the reconciliation stage. So they just make the victim feel that it was not an abuse at all. So that happens in the third stage, and last comes the honeymoon phase or the calm phase, where there is no mention about that incident at all. No abuse is taking place. It's a very nice stage of the life where the victim feels that, okay, that was just uh, a single incident, which is not really that, something that I should be pondering about, or something that I should be thinking about. Now life is so nice, it's so rosy, and it's the best time in my life. And most of the abusers, they make the victim feel that it's such a beautiful time. They give them a lot of gifts, and verbally please them a lot. So this would be the calm phase or the honeymoon phase of the abuse, and then it goes back to stage one. So mostly the victim feels that, okay, just a month back he was so good to me, or this person was so nice to me, he gave me so many gifts, he said about me so well to his friends and family and everybody. So this is just something that happens once in a while, or something that I should not be taking so seriously. So this is why the cycle actually goes on. So this is why the cycle actually is a cycle, I would say. So next slide, sir. So in 90% of the cases, the people who came for therapy said that it is usually interspersed. 90% of the cases, the victims said that they were put into emotional confusion. So is this actually abuse, or I mean, I get so confused. He's so good at sometimes, he's shouting at me at some other time, he's blaming me at times, but at other times, it's so good. Like he's so nice to me. So they have this emotional confusion. Next slide, sir. So as I told you, there are certain emotional, I mean, personality disorders that we can associate with the abuser, and one of those is narcissistic personality. So these people have a very high sense of self-worth. They feel that they are really good in whatever they do. They are the best people. There's nothing wrong with them. Whatever they do is perfect. Okay. And they generally show this pattern of manipulation. They have this controlling behavior. Everything has to be under my control. So there should not be anything that. And another thing is, most of these people who are having a narcissistic personality, they have a very poor insight. Even if you tell them straight in their faces that this is how you are, it's very difficult to convince them that yes, this belongs to my personality characteristics. So they may use verbal abuse, they may use emotional manipulation, and then they basically devalue this person, reject them at some point, and then again bring them back. So it's again this narcissistic abuse of the cycle of abuse. Next slide, sir. So how do you know that a person is actually being abused or a person is in an abusive relationship? Mostly they're afraid of their partners. They listen to whatever their partner says. They don't really think for themselves or have their own way of thinking. They tell their partner about every move of theirs. So once they fall into this victim, once they become the victim, then there might be abuse even as tracking down their the victim, trying to have. Now we have even high tech ways of tracking, like using location sharing on Google and all. So these abusers, they always want to make the partners, like inform them about every move of theirs, be in control even if they are out of sight. They are frequently contacted every half an hour or every 1 hour or every 10 minutes also they may get a call. So the victim initially might feel that this is like the expression of true love. This person is calling me every 10 minutes, but actually he's trying to control or show that assertion of power over the victim, that wherever you go, you're never out of my sight, or you're never out of me knowing where you are. So they comment on their partners, on what they're doing and stuff like that. Next slide, sir. And they control how much this person is able to contact other people, may record their calls, or limit the number of times, like limit the time that they have to communicate with other people. They may restrict their access to money. So even if the victim is a working member, the abuser may working, as a person who's working and earning for himself or herself, the abuser may say that you have to give all the money to me. I will say what you have to spend for. Okay, you need money, 100 rupees, so you have to ask me. You can't take decisions for yourself. You can't go out whenever you want to. You have to, even if you want to book a cab, I have to know. Like, I need to know what you're doing with even 10 rupees or 20 rupees that you are spending. Experience a very low self-esteem, so they don't have that worth about themselves. They feel withdrawn. They may feel anxious. Generally they have this feeling of anxiety. They may feel depressed. They may even feel suicidal. They feel trapped. After a point, they really have that feeling that yes, I'm trapped. I'm not able to I'm not who I was earlier. After I came into this relationship, I'm not the person who I was. If any person feels this, then they are under abuse. So that is how we can explain it in a very simple way. So they feel that they don't. Next slide, sir. They feel that they are not good enough, or the abuser may say that you don't know how to do anything. Like even a simple thing, they may initially make the victim feel better. We feel good about it. You don't know how to tie your hair, you don't know how to do this, you don't know how to serve this, or I'll do it for you. So it makes the victim feel so helpless, or a person who's not able to do even the basic things that he or she has to do. So they constantly make the victim ask for validation. Am I doing it right? Or am I actually doing it in the right way? Or actually this person has to tell me whether I'm doing it right or wrong. And until a particular state, mostly in our culture, even towards the end of the relationship, or however long the relationship lasts, the victim may not be aware that this is abuse that is happening. So I'll come to it later on in the presentation. So the victim is not himself or herself anymore. You have to be very careful of what you're doing. You're not sure about how the other person, if I do this, what will the other person think? I'm not myself anymore. Okay, so next slide, sir. So the victim starts to feel all these things. Next slide, sir. Yes. So, and they constantly put you down. Okay, you feel like, you feel like you're the problem. Uh, you're blamed for whatever you do, and even if you are not aware of the whole thing, also you get blamed. And you start withdrawing because whatever you do for your little happiness, it ultimately ends up in a lot of trouble. It ends up in a lot of verbal abuse, or it ends up in the abuser saying that, okay, this is not what I wanted, or this was not what you were supposed to do, or this was so bad that you did this. So they'll feel that, okay, just for 5 minutes of happiness, I'll have to go through a half day of, complaints and stuff like that. So it's better not to just go out or just listen to what this person says, so that I'm in the safe space where once in a while I feel happy. Next slide, sir. So there is one term that is very much important when we talk about abuse, which is gaslighting. It is this term is actually it's adapted from a movie where it's a very nice movie where the husband actually tricks the woman into thinking that she's out of her senses. Okay, so this woman, like, he dims the lights, he uh, manipulates the lighting of the whole house, and this woman says that, okay, there is something wrong, and then he says that, no, 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 there's nothing like that, it's all your thought, you're thinking it that way, which ultimately made this woman think that there's something wrong with me. I don't have a clear sense of reality. I don't know what is happening. I am not, I'm not even able to find out what is real and not real, what is fake. So it ultimately makes this person question whether I'm sane or not. Am I crazy, or what's wrong with me? So I have to check with this person all the time, because whatever I think may not be right. So that is what the person thinks ultimately as a result of gaslighting. And most of the people who engage in gaslighting, they may not even know that it is gaslighting that they're doing, because it might, sound like something which is very, very innocent, or something that is not so bad, like, you need help, you're not such a dependent person, so you're not able to do anything by yourself, so you're being so defensive, I never hit you, how can you say this? Or if I was there, this wouldn't have happened to you, so I would have protected you. So you're always twisting things, so you're not saying the right thing. So whatever the abuser says, they twist it in a way and make it sound as though the victim actually said that you asked for it. It was you who asked for it, and that's why I did this, so how can you blame me now? Or you're imagining things, you're just imagining it, I never said that, I never did that. That's not right on your part to say that I've been so good to you, and this one thing that I've done, and then you're creating such a big fuss over it. How can you do it? Or don't get upset over such trivial things. It's such a goody matter. So how can you, even say that it's something that worth, explaining or something like that? So I didn't mean that. How can you say something which I never had in mind? It's your imagination. Or you're being so dramatic. So all these things can be something that a gaslighter generally says. Or it's a problem with your memory. I never said that. Or do you have proof for that? No, right? So how can you prove that I did that? Or it's totally your fault. It never happened that way. All this is, or is it I who said that? Is you who said that, right? So asking all these questions is basically gaslighting. So, it is, these are all strategies to make the victim bind to the perpetrator. You are dependent on me. If I'm not there, then your whole life is going to be a mess. So all that is, something that happens in gaslighting, and gaslighting is very common. It happens in many relationships, but what happens is mostly the victim or the abuser may not be aware that, yes, this is gaslighting that is actually happening, or this is abuse that is actually there in the relationship. Next slide, sir. So why do people actually stay in the abusive relationship? In spite of knowing that it's not so good, or I don't feel really good, or why do they actually? Next slide, sir. So it might be because this person or this victim has a low self-esteem. They don't have that feeling of worth about themselves, or in many cases, what happens is the victim feels that this abuser will change because of the cycle of abuse, and there was some, incidents where the, abuser was good to them. They know that, okay, he knows how to be a good person. So, anytime I can expect him to be, constantly in that good mood. So this is something that has happened. So he's going to change. At some point, he'll change, or I can change him. Or even the, society might tell you, it's up to you. You have to change this person. Or it can be emotional dependence. This person might be too dependent on the other person, or fear of the future. If the, victim is not financially independent, it might be the fear of the future. Okay. Or it might be the fear about what will happen to the children if it is a marital relationship. Or another thing is, this might be the only reality that they know, because they have seen their parents having this abusive relationships. They've seen this in movies, they've seen this in TV serials, and they think that this is how it's actually supposed to be. So they think that this is normal. This is actual reality. Or they can be constant threats, telling that this is where you should be. You go out of this and then you're doomed. So there can be constant threats. Economic dependence is a very big factor, where if the victim is not able to live an independent life, then they feel that, I have to be in this relationship, otherwise I don't have a choice other than this. I don't have a good support system to take me back if I come out of this relationship. Or it can be a feeling of shame, if I come out, what will other people say? Or they'll think that I was a failure, it was because of me. So all these might be, that can be factors which make these people think that I have to stay in this relationship. That is the reason why these relationships last for a long time. Next slide, sir. So 88% of the therapists in the study which I was talking about earlier, they said that psychological violence can be more harmful or as harmful as physical violence. So what happens as a result of it? It's not broken bones or bruised skin. Next slide, sir. So it can, but these psychological abuse that a person can go through can actually cause physical illnesses like headaches or back pain or leg pain or gastrointestinal problems. It can lead to psychological issues like depression, anxiety, PTSD, difficulty in, other forming other interpersonal relationship. It can affect the children or the other significant people inside the relationship. So for some people who have undergone abuse, just listening to stories like this can itself be triggering. So it affects them in the long run. It's not just something that is there and you come out of that and then you're free from it. It can trigger them at any point. So it has actually a long lasting, it stays with the person for a long time. Next slide, sir. So without proper intervention, the frequency and severity of abuse can actually increase. So what can we do about it? There can be social intervention, there can be community services where psychologists or social workers actually come into the picture. Or if it is because of family dysfunction, then this kind of an intervention can work. If it is because of some mental illness or substance abuse or something, then there can be medical interventions, or there can be mental health interventions that can help. So all these things can be done. Or sometimes we may have to separate the victim from their abuser, just to make sure, next slide, sir, just to make sure that the victim is safe. They may have to leave the environment. They may feel that, if it is going, past a particular level, then they may just have to leave, be it the marital relationship, or be it the parents, or be it the workplace, or wherever it is. They may just have to leave the environment, but before leaving, they just have to make sure that it is well planned, because you have to know how this person is going to react, what is going to happen next. You need to have a proper social support. You need to have the people who can help you out if something goes, out of plan. They may need counseling. So mostly the victim may need counseling once they realize that it's abuse and it goes out of control and it really affects their psychological well-being. They may need counseling. Sometimes the abuser may also need counseling. So sometimes the victim may not want to come out of the relationship. So sometimes they may try one round of counseling to just see if there can be any solutions which come out of it. So all these things can be there. Next slide, sir. So most of the online therapy which has happened for trauma, we can see that immediately after treatment, 69.2% of the people, they felt better. So it works. So if you are traumatized because of something, you go for therapy and it really works. Like 77% of the people said that, like in the 3-month follow-up, they felt that there was an increase. I mean, there was an improvement. So next slide, sir. So now we are coming to the most important part where we want to see what are the barriers which exist from escaping an abusive relationship. So in many times we may want to escape out of the relationship, but what are the barriers? Why don't people escape, and what has to change? So mostly it would be the fear of the abuser. What if this person retaliates? How is this person going to react? Okay. So here we need to ensure that these people are safe. They have the actual support that they require. They have their family support. They have the support of their friends, and they have the support of NGOs or whoever is there to actually help them. So even if this person retaliates, they will be safe. They won't be affected much. So that has to be taken care of. And they might be too controlled. They may not know that this is abuse. They have to come out of it. So we need to break that control chain which they are in. So they need to come out of it, and then they need to sometimes it may be the lack of awareness. They may not know what is abuse. This is something that I have seen very commonly in our culture, where male toxicity is, it is seen as a perfect, it is idealized. So that is what how masculine character should be. It is okay for them to be a little violent, or is it's perfectly all right for them to hit them. I would strongly say that media has a very big role in this, where they romanticize or they idealize toxicity. So they may feel that this is not abuse. This is how a relationship actually should be. Okay. So this is where we need to bring in this relationship education. What is a healthy relationship and what is not healthy? At what point do you have to understand that this is abuse? What is how should a sexual relationship be? How should a relationship be? So that awareness has to be given to both the genders, to everybody, not just to girls and not just to boys. Everybody needs to know about it. And then the fear of involvement. Many times what happens is, if it is a mother who is the victim, she may feel that if I say something, I might lose my child. I might lose the child rights over my child. Like I'm not able to support the child financially, so the court may say that the child can stay with the father. So what happens if something like that happens? So she'll think that, okay, it's better to stay here, so at least I can be with my child. So here, we need to educate them over what can be done about it. So that is one reason why many of the women, they actually are scared to come out of an abusive relationship. Next slide, sir. There can be a lack of information about what are the services which are there, how can they access them. They can even be helplines, but most of them don't know, or they may not get the proper support. So make sure it is through social media, or over the television, or just make people aware that these services exist in our society. Have it in most of the public places where people can see it. Make people aware that these services can be availed by you. If at any point you feel that you need help, you can contact this number, or you can contact this person, or this agency. This is there. That awareness should be given to the people. And then it might be because they are emotionally manipulated. That can be one reason why they're not coming out of the relationship. So increase their bring in that awareness of what is what is actually to be expected from a relationship. Make the people get educated, tell them or inform them about what are the different phases of abuse. So all this can be done. Next slide, sir. Yes. And another thing is, they won't be knowing about other people who have actually come out of the relationship like this. So they may feel that if I come out, then nobody will be there for me, or I've only heard about failure stories of people who have come out of relationships. Nobody will be there to support me. So they have to be told that yes, there is a life even after you come out of an abusive relationship. It's not the end of your life, or this doesn't define you. There is a you outside this relationship also. Okay. And another thing which is generally there is this pressure from the community, pressure from the family in many cases, pressure because of the minority status that they are having. It can be because of their, migrant status, or it can be because of, their life experiences. It might be because of the parents telling that you have to stay in this relationship. We spend so much of money to get you married. We invested all of our money and everything in this marriage. So you always have to stick on to this. It's our prestige that you're playing with. So you shouldn't be doing this. You shouldn't come out of it. You can change that person. So the girl, in most of the cases, like when we talk about dowry abuse and all, the girl might be looking forward to the parents telling that, okay, if you're not able to cope with it, just come off, we can help you out, you can stay with us. But in many cases, the parents don't actually do that. They'll think that, okay, everything will be fine, it just takes time. So there may be that pressure from the family or from the community to stay in that relationship. So they need to know that they can also come out of it. The family may have to be counseled. The family has to be told that divorced daughter is better than a dead daughter. We have heard about so many cases of dowry abuse, so many cases of abuse where the girl has committed suicide. In the last 2 months, there were 3 cases from which I came to know about from my close circle, where the girl committed suicide because of dowry abuse. In most of these cases, the girl did not get the required support from the family. So the girl, in most of the cases, the girls were also educated. So it's not always about lack of education or lack of money or lack of support or lack of family which leads to abuse. It's mostly the lack of awareness that is there on the part of the victim and the people who are associated with the victim, which actually leads to abuse. And this is where I assume that most of the people here are mental health practitioners. This is where we have to work on. So I'm ending my presentation here. So that's it. Next slide, sir. Yes. Thank you. Next slide.
It was wonderful session, ma'am. Thank you. Participants, it's time for discussion. You can ask, ma'am.
Ma'am, before going to the Q&A, I'd like to give my feedback regarding the system. I think it is anyone can relate the concept which you told in the presentation when they have this kind of experiences. I can say that when I connect these experiences with my workplace, reason is I was there more than 6 places, and 3 of them are government organizations and 3 of them are private. And whatever you said, I think I can. The words are not coming, their faces are coming in front of me. Such amazing session you made. I think these things need to be educated. Loudly session, ma'am. Please accept our gratitude from our side. Thank you so much, ma'am, for making this session more lively and more interesting. Thank you so much. Yes.
Yeah,
Thank you,
Sundaram, you can go ahead. Yeah, you can go ahead, Sundaram.
Shall I go?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
I have come across an area wherein the daddy was abusing both the daughters, and the mummy knows very well. And mummy says, if my husband is put in jail under POCSO, who will feed us? Who are the 3 of us? Knowing fully well, she told the daughters, put up with it. Very painful story. Another area was there's a sex abuse committee in all the schools and colleges, and the man in charge is the one who is the perpetrator. He is the one who is in the committee. And how can you report the same person to the committee? And they are the ones wielding the power. And the villain becomes the hero also here. And the girl is no way can lodge a complaint in the school or in the college. That's the irony of the society. Another area I have seen a DSP level police officer naming the girl by name in TV in front of the journalist. And when the people asked him, how can you name the girl's name in public? He says that was a mistake. He coolly looks at all the people and bloody well he says, that's a mistake. And what's the next question? Such an arrogant guy the DSP was. I saw him in the TV with my own eyes. So pretty bad the situation is, and people do not know. People think it's all good. Here and there something. That's an isolated case. Too many areas. Wonderful presentation. I'm very happy with it. Good, you've thrown some light on it and made people to think. Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Ma'am, it was a wonderful presentation, ma'am. I have a question. If you are the third person, we are seeing the abuser and the victim, but the victim is not aware of that. In most of cases, they are not aware only, not aware, no, ma'am. How can we help them to educate that you are being abused? One point, and the other one, how can we realize that the person you are abusing that person? Sometimes the abuser also not aware, no, ma'am. So how can we educate them? Is any law point the third person can interfere in there, or the medical practitioners only can enter there, like that? Tell me there somewhat, ma'am. Thank you.
I'm not very clear about the legal part of this, but as a third person, if we are the friend, if we are the friend who wants to help, or we want to help our relative or a friend who is actually in trouble, we can actually make them aware that in many cases there is this resistance even from the part of victim initially. Unless it reaches a particular stage, victim actually resists. Is that no, you can't say. How can you say this about my, partner? So this is not. I don't want to listen to all this. There can be so much resistance. Consistently, if we tell them or we make them aware that this is not how you're supposed to feel in a relationship, and actually make them understand. It is about bringing that awareness in the person that this is possible. And in most cases, when the abuser is having a narcissistic personality, it's difficult to bring in that insight into them. It's very difficult to make them understand that yes, you are this. What you're doing is actually gaslighting, or what you're doing is actually psychological. It's very, very difficult to make them understand that. So on that side, it might be very difficult if you are, intervening as a friend or as a neighbor or something. But if you can, bring in that awareness in both the parties, in the victim and the perpetrator. I think bringing that awareness itself is the basic. My whole intention is supposed to make people think and make people aware that this exists so much in a society, and we all have to do something about it, rather than just thinking that it's just somewhere or it doesn't really exist in our culture. It is there, and we really have to do something about it. But what we have to do is basically bring in this, tell them about what the helplines are available, and even if you come out of a relationship, you have a, you have a life, or you can approach mental health professionals who are specializing in this area. What are the things like if you need legal help, this is where you have to approach. So all these things have to be told to them. Gradually, the change will happen. And many cases, as Mutaya sir was telling, I have come across a case where initially the uncle was abusing the children, like two girls in the family, and then the mother told this to to her husband, to the father of the children, and he was abroad, and he came back to India, and then he started abusing the daughters. People that already have been abused, so there's no point in me, controlling myself or thinking that wrong from my side to abuse them. So he also started abusing, and then this mother said there's nothing wrong. How can I? Because this father is who's supporting me, so it's okay. If the father is doing it, there's no problem. So in this case, the children can't expect the support from the own mother or from the own father. So in this cases, there has to be a proper support.
Thank you, ma'am. Some questions are there in chat box. Shall I read it out? Yeah,
Phone, I'm not able to see it.
yeah. From Swarna, G. Swarna. Do abusers really retaliate if the victim leaves the relationship? Is it common to see multiple people acting as abusers in our culture, especially in marital relationships?
What was the first part of the question? I was just searching if I could find it, but I could you
Do abusers really retaliate if the victim leaves the relationship? This is the first question.
Okay, they do in many cases. They may emotionally threaten the victim, saying that you cannot leave me and go. I've been so good to you. I've got you so many things. I've got you so many gifts. I've been so good to you in the past. So how can you do this? If you do this, then that's the end of a relationship. You're going to lose. You're not good enough to get anybody other than me. So these are some of the things that the abuser may say to the victim and make the victim stay back in the relationship. Or I'm going to harm your, anything that you do. I'm going to harm all the people who are going to be close to you. Or I'm going to tell your parents they're going to have a mental breakdown or a heart attack. So this is going to be the end of your life. So all this is how they may retaliate, or they may even engage in some physical, abuse. All these things might. So would definitely, in most cases, retaliate.
Then second one is it common to see multiple people acting as abusers in our culture, especially in marital relationships?
In marital relationships, not always the husband. They can be the mother-in-law, they can be the sister-in-law, like anybody in their family who is actually abusing the victim if it is the girl who is being abused. In the workplace, you can have the people who are, in the in the hierarchy who are above the person, and the other people who are in the same level also who are, supporting the manager or the other person. So it's not always a single person. In any context that you take, not always single person. And in many cases, this victim is in many cases like consistently the victim. In one relationship, the person was so conditioned to be a victim, so conditioned to be dominated by others, so conditioned to be controlled by somebody else, that in the future relationships also the same thing might happen. So it's not always in the same time frame. Also, it can happen in the future, or in different time frames also. So not always a single person who is abusing or a single case of abuse. There can be multiple abuses, of course.
Thank you, ma'am. Then another one is how to empower the victims of abusive relationships.
How to empower them? First is making them understand whether you want to stay in the relationship or whether you want to come out of it. So if you are coming out of it, what is the future for you? Who is going to support you? How can you support yourself? Instead of framing it as who will support you, how can you support yourself? Or what strengths can you, or what are the opportunities that you have which are going to help you out if you come out of the relationship? So mostly empowerment should happen in the educational side, in the financial, like the person should be able to support himself or herself. So that is the first thing that should be there. The person needs a job. The person needs to be able to live by himself or herself, or needs to go to their, maiden family, or all these things. So they need to know what other things are there available to them other than this relationship. That is what is important.
Thank you, ma'am. Then one more thing. I think Sulochana, what will be the child mental health when it happens in the family, and how can we make the children not copy the role of narcissist?
So one category of people who are very much affected because of an abusive relationship with a child in the family. In most cases, as I told you, once a victim of abuse, that person can later on become the abuser. So this person can absorb those narcissistic traits that he sees and feels that, okay, now I'm helpless. I can't do anything about it. So later on, like there can be a factor like it is transferred from the parent to the child. That can be one explanation. The thing is, the child models the parent, think that, okay, this is how I exert power over my partner. So this is how my father does it. So this is how I have to do it. Or this is how my mother is. So this is how I have to, I have to behave later on. So we have to make this first. If it is too traumatic for the child to be in the relationship, the child has to come out of it. And early education about what is a toxic relationship. So whatever you're seeing at home is actually toxic. That is not healthy. So that awareness has to be given to the child. So that has to happen in school. schools, that can happen as a part of workshops in schools. All these things can be done where the child understands that this is not the norm. Because for many children, they see the one parent abusing the other parent. They think that this is how a relationship should be. So, and they may even hear comments like, okay, if you want to hit somebody, you get married and you hit your wife. So I've heard many people correct to their children. You want to hit somebody, then go get married. So what are we injecting in the child's mind? You can get married, that your partner is somebody who you can hit or who you can physically abuse. So all these are very small messages that we are giving them, that it's okay to abuse. So abuse is a part of the relationship. So even we may be unknowingly saying this, all this has to stop. That awareness has to become, that has to come in the for the parents, for everybody who is associated. So they tell them, not the norm is actually feeling good when you're in a relationship, and not feeling worse or feeling stopped or feeling not yourself anymore. That is not how a relationship should be, and the child has to know that. So it can come only through proper education from a very young age. There's no age where they won't understand, or like from a very young age itself we can start. This is how you bring in the concept of equality. This is how you can bring in the concept of uh, like what a healthy relationship is. So all that can really help.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. It was a wonderful explanation. Any other doubts, participants? Yes, sir. Yes.
Hello,
Yes, ma'am.
ma'am. I have a doubt, ma'am.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Little louder, ma'am. I think Shivagami. Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear, ma'am?
Yes,
Yes, ma'am.
please continue.
மேம் நான் பர்சனலாக ஒன்று கேட்கணும். ஆக்சுவலாக என்னோட ரிலேஷன் ஓகேங்களா, வளர்ந்தது எல்லாமே வந்து எந்த ஒரு இதுவுமே அபியூசிவ் இல்லாம ஓகே நல்ல ஒரு இதா வளர்ந்துருக்காங்க. மேரேஜ் ஆயிட்டு போறாங்க. பட் அவங்க ஃபேமிலியில எல்லாருமே ஒரு அப்பாவா இருக்கட்டும் சரி, அதான் மாமனார் மாமியார் ஹஸ்பண்ட் எல்லாருமே வந்து ஒரு அபியூசிவா திட்டுறாங்க. அது எல்லாமே ஓகே தாங்கிக்கிட்டு அவங்க இருக்காங்கன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க. திரும்ப திரும்ப அது மேற்கொண்டு அதே பேசிட்டே இருக்காங்க. அது மாதிரி பேசிட்டு இருக்கும்போது ஒரு நேரம் வந்து அவங்க கன்சீவ் ஆயிடுறாங்கன்னு வச்சுக்கோங்க. ஹஸ்பண்ட் வந்து பிசிக்கலாவும் அவங்கள வந்து ரொம்ப ஹர்ட் பண்றாங்க. இதனால அவங்களுக்கு அபார்ட்டும் ஆயிடுது. திருப்பியும் வந்து அவங்க ஓகே நார்மல் ஆயிடும் அப்படின்னு சொல்லிட்டு அட்ஜஸ்ட் பண்ணிட்டு போறாங்க. பட் அட் லாஸ்ட் வந்து அவங்க ரொம்ப ஹர்ட் ஆகி இப்போ பேரண்ட்ஸ் வீட்டுக்கு வந்துடுறாங்க. அந்த கேர்ள் வந்து வந்துடுறாங்க. எதுவுமே இல்லாம நடு இதுல நிக்கிறப்ப அவங்களுக்கு என்ன மேம் ரெசல்யூஷன் சொல்றீங்க?
So she needs like it's not always on the relationship. There's no safety that she can be sure of in that relationship, because she's constantly being abused. There is physical abuse, there is sexual abuse, there is psychological abuse. All forms of abuse are there in that relationship. So it's not at all advisable for her to stay back there. So she may have to come out of that relationship and think about what next. It's not the end of her life. It's not like with this she doesn't have a bright future. She can have an amazing future. She can get into a new relationship if she wants. Once she comes out of this trauma, when she feels that she can relate to another person, she can be close to another person. At that time, she can enter another relationship. She can, she can work. She can do what makes her happy, basically. Not become in that relationship, which is 99.9% it's not going to work. So it would be really advisable for her to come out of it, and there has to be awareness on the part of the family also.
ஓகே மேம், நீங்க சொல்றீங்க. பட் இப்ப வெளியில வந்துட்டோம், திரும்பவும் வந்து அவங்க ஹஸ்பண்ட் வந்து சாரி சொல்லிட்டு திருப்பி கூப்பிடுறாங்க. இதனால வந்து பல தடவை அவங்க வந்து போயிருக்காங்க. திருப்பி அம்மா வீட்டுக்கு வர்றது, திருப்பியும் வந்து ஹஸ்பண்ட் வீட்டுக்கு போறது, இதே மாதிரி இருந்திருக்காங்க. திருப்பி அதே மாதிரி ஒரு சுச்சுவேஷன் வரப்ப அட் லாஸ்ட் வேண்டான்ட்டு வந்துடுறாங்க. திருப்பி அவங்க அம்மாவுக்கு உடம்பு சரியில்லை இது மாதிரி சொல்றப்ப இப்ப என்ன முடிவு இருக்கு? ஒரே கன்ஃபியூஸ்டா இருக்காங்க அவங்க.
So that is how that person is trying to manipulate. எனக்காக வர வேண்டாம், அம்மாக்காக வாங்க. அம்மாவை பார்த்து நீங்க தானே இருக்கீங்க, நீங்க போனீங்கன்னா what will happen to my mother? So this is your responsibility. So these are the ways that these abusers use to manipulate these victims. So they feel that okay, it's my responsibility. If I do, how can I call myself a good daughter? So they know where to actually hook these people. So they have to be aware about these things, that it is pure manipulation, after this, they are definitely going back to stage 1. So she already has, experienced that. So it's not advisable for her to go back again. So there has to be a legal separation, or there has to be some professional help that is given to the girl.
Thank you.
Hello.
Thank
Excuse me,
you.
ma'am.
Yes, sir.
girl வந்து
Ma'am, can you
அம்மா வீட்டுக்கு
briefly describe the treatment process in this in treating narcissistic personality disorder? And is there scope for any change? Like, because for a partner who's scared to go back into the relationship, for a couple who've been separated, like for a year now almost, and the woman is very scared to go back into the relationship because of the fear of going through the same thing again. Realizing that it is narcissistic personality disorder that the husband is suffering from, what would the treatment for this person be like, and how long would that probably take?
That I think anybody from a clinical background would be better able to explain that. But as far as I have known people, and I have, out of my experience, it's very difficult to bring that person out of it. Like it's not like you have to give up on that person, but it is quite tough. But therapy can work. Therapy can be given. There can be, therapy which can change the cognitive distortions that the person has, change the way in which she deals with the relationship. All this can work, but what kind of therapy and all, I think the person who is from a clinical background will be able to explain that.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yes, Muttaya, sir.
ரைட் கப்பல் ஆஃப் திங்ஸ் கொஞ்சம் முன்னால் ஒரு லேடி சொன்னாங்கல்ல, ஹஸ்பண்ட் அபியூஸ்னா மம்மி வீடு வந்து எஸ்கேப் ரூட்டு. மம்மி எஸ்கேப் ரூட்டையும் திருப்பி எடுத்து கொண்டு போய் ஹஸ்பண்ட் கையில் விட்டோம்னா அந்த எஸ்கேப் ரூட்டும் போயிருது. அட் சம் பார்ட் ஆஃப் டைம் வி நோ வேர் டு ட்ரா த லைன். ஏன்னா அந்த எஸ்கேப் ரூட்டை கட் பண்ணிட்டீங்க, திரும்ப ஹஸ்பண்ட் கையில் தான் போகணும்னா தான் தென் இட் கெட்ஸ் எஸ்கலேட்டட். தட்ஸ் டூ சீரியஸ். ஐ டோன்ட் வாண்ட் டு நேம் இட். ஐ டோன்ட் வாண்ட் டு மேக் பீப்புள் ஃபீல் த்ரெட்டன்ட் ஆர் ஸோ. பட் தட்ஸ் நாட் ஓகே ஃப்ரம் மை பாயிண்ட் ஆஃப் வியூ. மம்மி வீடு ஒரு எஸ்கேப் ரூட் ஒன்று வேணும். ஒரு லேடிக்கு ஒரு எஸ்கேப் ஏரியா ஒன்று இருக்கத்தான் வேண்டும். அதை ஷட் டவுனே பண்ணக்கூடாது. ஹஸ்பண்ட் திரும்ப கூட்டு போறாரு, திரும்ப அபியூஸ் பண்றாருன்னா திரும்பவும் மம்மி ரிசீவ் பண்ணணும். மம்மி இங்கே திருப்பி அங்கே கொண்டு போய் விட்டாங்கன்னா டூ ப்ராப்ளமேட்டிக். தட் குட் பி வெரி கிரிட்டிக்கல், டேஞ்சரஸ். அனதர் ஏரியா, ஒன்னதர் ஏரியா, லேடி என்கிட்ட ஸ்லீப்பிங் ப்ராப்ளம் வந்தாங்க. அதுக்கப்புறமா டீப் இன்சைட் கேட்ட போது அல்டிமேட்டா சொல்றாங்க, ஒன் டே when my husband was drunk, he was at 50-55 and he is drunk. He says, daughter looks exactly like the way you were when I married you. One day I'm going to have sex with her. அப்ப நான் சொன்னேன், வேற ரூம்ல டாக்டரை கூட்டியாந்து இங்க வச்சுக்கோங்கன்னா, இல்ல ஹஸ்பண்ட் வாண்ட்ஸ் டு ஸ்லீப் வித் மீ and doesn't want to go. I said, nothing doing, push your husband away and you and your daughter sleep together. Every day I can't sleep because of him, because of this thought. And then she asked me, can you tell my daughter so? எடுத்த உடனே டாக்டர் கலவரப்படுத்தாதம்மா, அப்பா மேல ஒரு நல்ல நம்பிக்கை வச்சிருக்கிறா, அதை கெடுத்துறாத. பார்க்கலாம், எஸ்கலேட் ஆச்சுன்னா வேற ஏதாவது பிசிக்கல் சயின்ஸோ பாடி லாங்குவேஜ்லயோ உனக்கு கிடைச்சதுன்னா தென் டெல்லர். இப்ப ஆஸ் இட் இஸ், ஏதோ ட்ரிங்க் பண்ணா ஏதோ சொன்னா அது ஆக்ஷனபிளா மாறுற போது ஆக்ஷன் எடு. நீ இருக்கிற ரிலேஷன்ஷிப்பை கெடுத்துறாதம்மா. பட் யூ ஆர் த பெஸ்ட் ஜட்ஜ், ஐ கான்ட் டூ இட். வீட்டுல எப்படி ப்ராசஸ் போதோ அதுக்கு நடுவில் யூ டேக் a decision, take a call on that ன்னு சொல்லி அனுப்புனேன். So sometimes as a man, I will not be able to find out the intricacies what is happening inside a family. A lady can always find out. சின்ன சின்ன மூவ்மெண்ட், சின்ன சின்ன அசைவு கூட a lady can always find out, a man cannot. And one other area, நிர்மலா தேவின்னு ஒரு ப்ரொஃபசர் இருந்தாங்க. And this lady was soliciting some girls for some other people. Ultimately, this professor Nirmala Devi was put to shame. And the abuser யார் இருக்கிறானா, அவன் பேரே வெளியில வரல. ஹாப்பி கோ லக்கி கை, அவன் இன்னும் அழகா வெளியில இருக்கிறான். இந்த மாதிரி ஜெயில போட்டுட்டாங்க. This lady made a mistake. I am not denying the fact. But who was the receiving end? அவன் பாட்டுக்கு ரொம்ப ஜம்முன்னு இருக்கிறானே, இந்த பொண்ணை மட்டும் ஷேம்ஃபுல்லா பண்ண வைக்கிற நம்ம லீகல் சிஸ்டமோ சொசைட்டல் சிஸ்டமோ ஐ எம் டோட்டலி அகேன்ஸ்ட் இட். பட் தேர்ஸ் நத்திங் ஐ கேன் டூ அபவுட் இட். சரியா? அதுக்கப்புறம் இந்த அபியூஸ் ஆகிற இடத்துல என்ன பண்ணிடுறாங்க, அம்மா எஸ்கேப் ரூட்னு கண்டுபிடிச்சு கல்யாணம் கட்டி அனுப்பி வச்சிடுறாங்க. ஷீ இஸ் நாட் ப்ரிப்பேர்ட், எஜுகேட்டட் டு கெட் மேரிட். இந்த ஃபயர்ல இருந்து ஃப்ரையிங் பேனை கொண்டு போய் போடுற மாதிரி அப்பா கிட்ட இருந்து இல்ல யார்கிட்ட இருந்தோ தப்பிக்கிறதுக்காக குழந்தைய பிடிச்சி மேரேஜ் பண்ணி விட்டு சின்ன வயசுல மேரேஜ் பண்ணி விழுந்துறாங்க. They need to be coached, they need to be educated, they need to be counseled, and they should be made fit. And during the time, maybe அவங்க இடத்த வேணா மாத்திக்கிட்டு வைக்கலாமே தவிர அப்பா கையில இருந்தோ இந்த அபியூசர் கையில இருந்தோ தப்பிக்கிறதுக்காக கல்யாணம் பண்றது எஸ்கேப் ரூட் அல்ல. பட் இந்த இடத்துல மம்மி நீட்ஸ் பி எஜுகேட்டட். ஒரு பீரியட் டைம் இந்த மாதிரி ஏராளமான கேஸ் பார்த்துட்டேன் நான்.
Sir, I can add my inputs here. We cannot deny that the person not having that any toxic relationship. Definitely they may have. But I noticed that some of the people, they are very clever, more diligently handle this kind of relationship. I know particularly one of my friend, she's in a toxic relationship. The way in which she is handling that relationship, it is amazing. She never say anything to me. And for example, the person's intention is to make her angry. She never get angry, and she will put a ball to him, and he will get angry. And she is very patient, I think, like a Buddha. So these kind of people also, then we have to get a tricks from those people, and that need to be educated among the people. That I can add here. And I can say the way for that is on positive psychology, from my little knowledge. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Surendra, you can go in the vote of thanks.
Okay, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, ma'am. In this challenging lockdown, it's need of the hour. Most of the people, they are abused in homes. Kindly accept our gratitude on behalf of American College Madurai, MS Chellamuthu Institute Madurai, Madras School of Work Chennai, Red Pond Educational Research Center, Yellow Pond Counseling Center, then Tamil Nadu Career Counselor Association, Tamil Nadu Career and Psychotherapy Association. We thank you, ma'am. Then participants, we will have yet another wonderful session tomorrow. Take care. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Good job.